I won't speak as quickly as I just did in the introduction, but we are delighted to be here at CES 2025, National Sleep Foundation. We're going to spend about 30 minutes with you. We'll be available for any questions that you have after we share some information with you. We'll also be at our booth, which is at the Venetian. It's booth 53706, is that right, Scott? The booth number?
53607.
53607, and we'll repeat that later in the presentation too. But here we all are in Las Vegas. It's the afternoon, and some of us are probably starting to feel a little cobwebs, especially if we've been traveling from out of town. So really appreciate that you're here to hear from us. Here's who you're going to hear from today. My name is John Lopos. I'm the CEO for National Sleep Foundation. You're also going to hear from Joe Dziejewski, who is the lead for our research capability at National Sleep Foundation. And I want to recognize the rest of the team. We have team members here in Elisa and Scott and all the folks back on the East Coast. We wouldn't be able to do the work that we do without the entire team and our group of volunteers and our board. So in 30 minutes, we're going to help you understand what the National Sleep Foundation is and why are we here at CES 2025. So I'll give you an overview of our mission and our goals and our purpose working with the public. Joe is going to share some new data. This will be the first time these data have been presented based on the sleep health check that we do every year. There'll be more in the spring, but we're going to give you a sneak peek into some data that we think actually has some significant implications here in the United States. And then we're going to think through what we expect to see this year and beyond. We'll give you some of our thoughts about what everyone in this room can expect to see in sleep health in the next year. So first, we are a nonprofit. We're an independent nonprofit. We've been working to serve the public for the past 35 years this year. And in fact, this is the 10th year here at CES since we have first come and advocated for sleep health. So it marks 10 years since we first were here at CES talking about sleep tech and sleep health, and 35 years for the organization. We're dedicated to improving health and well-being through sleep education and advocacy. Our promise to the public is to help anyone and everyone be their best self. The reason why we're here at CES this year is really the last of our goals. And our work is driven by these goals, making sure that sleep health is accepted as a crucial measure of health, making sure the natural sleep-wake cycle is known and understood as a basis for healthy sleep, making sure that community and infrastructure and environments respect sleep health. But that last goal is really our innovation goal. And that's that sleep science and insight are rapidly incorporated into accessible health products and services. And I'll take an aside. I'll invite everyone here to go to the Venetian and walk through the health exhibits, the health tech exhibits, because the tie-in to sleep and sleep health is ubiquitous. And we'll speak a little bit more to that later in the presentation. You probably know about National Sleep Foundation because of the different things that we do in the market. We believe that we're the public's most established sleep health resource, and the first organization that has been solely dedicated to public sleep health and well-being. We bring that to life through our distinctive research tools. We have something we call the Sleep Health Check, which is really a collection of multiple validated research tools that we field every year at the same time, and it helps to inform our Sleep in America poll. That Sleep in America poll is something that we publicize during Sleep Awareness Week. You might know us from our annual campaigns. We have two each year. In the spring is Sleep Awareness Week. In the fall is Drowsy Driving Prevention Week, because we focus on sleep health and safety for the public. You also might know us through our thought leadership, whether it is our peer-reviewed journal Sleep Health or through work that we've done with groups like CTA. We collaborate with CTA to develop standards for consumer tech products. We've published with them 5 to date. We have a 6 on the application of AI that's in the works now. Or maybe you've seen that we've done a public health textbook. The media often cites National Sleep Foundation. Some of the most common ways that were cited is when they're asking about how much sleep or they want to report on how much sleep people need. National Sleep Foundation, based on our consensus guidelines, recommends 7 to 9 hours for most adults. But we also have all the different recommendations based upon age cohort. Or they cite us because of the focus on sleep quality. What is sleep quality? And you'll be seeing more citations, we believe, on these two as we move forward. We believe that we are the right independent organization to be in this advocacy role. And you'll see that we start with our consensus work, our research and guidelines. We'll pull in collaboration with other technical experts, like the CTA for these standards, and ultimately we'll translate these into different resources for the public. Another reason why we are at CES 2025 is because we believe, a very important role in connecting the different stakeholders in the sleep health space. We really believe that we're in a hub and spoke model. We're at the center of the hub. We connect government, we connect industry, we connect research centers of excellence, professional societies. And it is because of that role that we're here to see what's happening in the sleep tech space, to advocate for sleep tech, and to make connections for other people as well. And we bring credibility and trust because of our independence. So with that setup, I'd like to introduce Joe Jajewski, who's going to share some data with you that we think have significance moving into this next year in the United States.
Thank you, John. My name is Joe Jajewski, as John just said. I'm Senior Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. By way of background, I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist and sleep researcher and investigator. Before I get into some of the new and quite compelling research that I want to share, I'd like to take a little pulse check. How many people here, busy professionals, routinely get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night? Congratulations to all 5 of you. How many people never have any trouble falling asleep? Okay, 8, 9, 10, good. Never wake up unwanted throughout the night? Okay, more people are doing that. How many people are generally satisfied with their sleep? 5, 6, 7. All right. You just do the math. You can see that here in this room is pretty typical of what we see out there in the larger population. Before I get into the population research, I want to share and emphasize that the research and the findings that I'm going to get into are actually the most methodologically rigorous survey research you can do. All the findings are from probability-based panels. They are representative of the US population. So when I talk about how America is sleeping, this is truly how America is sleeping. We use validated measures, probability-based sample. That's very important. All right, so we saw in here, frankly, you all might be sleeping a little bit worse than the general population. I don't know what that says about the profession or maybe the tech and being in Vegas, but what we typically see when we poll the general US population is that 66%, or you can think of it this way, 2 out of every 3 adults is not regularly getting enough sleep. That's compounded by issues in quality of sleep too. You see, over 6 out of every 10 adults is having routine difficulty falling asleep, and 4 out of every 10 adults is having trouble staying asleep throughout the night. Not surprisingly, when you add up the difficulties with not getting enough sleep and poor quality sleep, you see that 80% of us are dissatisfied with our sleep, more globally speaking. So really, really far-reaching issues. Compound that with the fact that most people don't know what to do about their sleep, right? 82% of people wish that they could improve their sleep. Less than 50% of people are actually confident in their level of knowledge that they have in their sleep. And 50% don't really know who to trust or where to turn for good, high quality, credible sleep information. This is really unfortunate because we know that there are numerous personal consequences of poor sleep health, and they're very well documented. You see the diagram here on the side. Truly, from head to toe, there's no part of your body, of your being, of your health and wellness that's not impacted when you don't get enough quality sleep. If you start at the top, everything that's kind of controlled and functions in the brain, from your mood to your memory, to more severe issues with dementia and stroke, down to more physiologic brain or pain, weight gain, sexual dysfunction. The list just goes on and on. It touches everything. So when you're thinking about health, you should really be thinking about sleep. Now, those are the personal consequences of poor sleep. Less is known, however, about how sleep health and the sleep health epidemic is costing employers and employees, right? So we have all those well-documented consequences to yourself in terms of health and wellness. But what about to the labor force? To answer this question, we recently conducted new population-based research querying specifically about the consequences of not getting enough sleep in terms of the labor force. And again, what we observed is really, really compelling. You're seeing that about 60% of the adult population is reporting that when they don't get enough sleep, it has a negative impact on their work productivity. Well over half of the workforce. We're seeing upwards of 70% of adults who are saying when they don't get quality sleep. So even when they get enough of it, but when it's disrupted, when it's not continuous, they're having this negative impact on their work productivity. And when we drill down further into some of the specific performance practices in work productivity and work performance, we see really, really interesting findings. Anywhere from 50%, upwards of 70% of people are reporting things about a negative impact on their ability to work the required number of hours throughout the day, their ability to think clearly, to do careful work, to avoid mistakes. You can see how such findings really could translate to important decisions in terms of employers. Now, why is National Sleep Foundation really thinking about the labor force? Well, currently in the US, we're seeing 170 million adults are part of the labor force. This is about 60% of the US adult population. It's also a context that is changing rapidly and has continued to change in the last couple of years, from the work at home mandates during the pandemic to returning to work and all the changes that accompany that with the influence of AI and everything else that's happening. It's a rapidly changing environment. And we've seen past reports from the RAND Corporation that are actually about 8 years old. We're documenting over 400 billion in direct costs associated with sleep to the US economy. It's a huge issue that's affecting the personal being as well as employment opportunities in the economy. With that, I'm going to hand it back to John.
So we're often asked, what do you see? What do you see coming down the road for us? And there have been some pretty dramatic changes that we've seen happen quickly. I'm going to focus just on three things that we expect to see significant changes in within the next year, and also moving past this next year, 2025. The first, this may seem a little obvious, but the first is that we are expecting to see significantly more sleep tech and sleep health product launches in this coming year. And that's going to come from a variety of different sources. First, we're going to see them in areas of consumer wellness and health, and we're going to see a lot more happening in lifestyle and self-care, bedding and home goods, and as you'll see here at CES 2025, a lot of consumer electronics. We're also going to see a lot of sleep health and safety related progress in the areas of transportation and mobility and infrastructure. We'll see more attention that's paid to sleeping in healthy environments and more attention that's paid to alertness and safety as in the workplace, but also in transportation. And then on the clinical side, we're expecting to see more innovation and more adoption around sleep conditions and disorders, specifically around diagnostics and treatments, delivery mechanisms for care, and things that will improve the patient experience. What that means for National Sleep Foundation is we're going to expect to see a lot of launches in the areas that we tend to promote for sleep health as part of our framework of best slept self. I'll go into those details a little bit with an invitation to the group afterwards. It's also going to elevate the importance of the work that we're doing to advocate for sleep tech and to help make sure that the companies that are developing sleep tech are following certain standards or benefiting from certain guidance that we and others have been giving in the space. And of course, it's going to excite us to be advocates and promote the promise of sleep tech, as we do every year in giving and awarding the Sleep Tech Awards. So that's the first. Here's the an invitation to the group. When you go back to the trade floor, the show floor, especially in the health tech floor, walk the floor and consider where any of these products fits against this framework. Are these products helping access to light or providing light? People getting natural light outside or even substitute inside, similar light inside. How is it helping exercise? Is it facilitating consistent meal times? Is it helping people avoid doing certain things like eating late at night or certain product, caffeine, nicotine at night? Does it help someone with their wind down? Does it help someone sleep in a sleep-friendly environment, something that's cool, dark, and quiet? When you walk the floor, you'll see just how many products that are here at CES 2025 can align in some way. Well, what does that mean? That means that the sleep economy is going to be growing in different ways than others have previously forecasted. We believe that the sleep economy is actually going to be redefined to include more things that align with what we are promoting as the tenets to be your best slept self. The third is we're going to be seeing more collaborations. More collaborations between established and also innovator brands, large brands, small brands, brands that you wouldn't expect to be doing more in sleep health. I'll announce a couple of things here a couple of collaborations here that we have just now started. This will be announced, I think, later this week with Panasonic Well, and also with our colleagues on the sleep apnea side at Inspire Medical. These are two organizations where we are going to be engaging in developing insights and content. We're very excited about these two collaborations, and there will be more announcements from National Sleep Foundation to come probably within the week. So these are the three things to look forward to this next year. This third one is that employers, and based a lot on what Joe shared with us, employers will invest more in co-worker sleep health. We have been talking to employers for years, and the data are becoming stronger and stronger that more need to be making these types of investments. It's good for their work performance, it's good for their living outside of work, it's good for their health and safety. Companies are going to be more involved with their employees in analysis, understanding how their employees' sleep health is. They'll be providing more guidance and education based on those analyses, and they'll maintain engagement with their employer base. We expect to see a lot more in this space in this next year and beyond. So, I want to invite everyone to come to the Venetian. I think it was on, it's level C, the Venetian. There it is, Hall C, 53607. Would also like to recognize our colleagues in Sleep Tech very well, who are next to us in the booth, and they've been very strong supporters of Sleep Tech over the years. Come visit us. Again, come walk the Sleep Health Tech floor. and you'll see just how much sleep is involved in the work that we're doing in health and tech. We're happy to take any questions. Yes, in the back, I think.
Is there a specific area now for sleep health around you?
On the trade floor?
Yeah.
There is not a sleep health specific area. Years ago, there was a sleep health pavilion that we actually hosted, but there is a health tech part of the conference this year, but there's no dedicated sleep health.
Digital health.
I'm sorry, digital health. Digital health.
But around our booth, you'll see other booths that do have sleep tech kind of built in. So if you go there and walk around, it's pretty clear how many companies are focusing on the sleep side of health.
Sir.
There seem to be a lot of devices, wearables, to kind of tell you allegedly how well you slept,
Yeah.
right? CPAP machines, watches, mattresses that cool. Do you see the combination of those coming together where they can give you a comprehensive score and try to correlate and make recommendations? Again, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that tells me I slept poor or didn't sleep well, but I don't know what to do with it other than to follow the 6 steps that you follow, and your score doesn't get any better.
I think Joe can comment to this too. I would say we're seeing more collaboration. There are multiple different ways to monitor sleep. There are different form factors for that. It's about the data, and we're seeing that some of these companies are coming together that have different form factors to try to work to give the user more information. Scores are great. Scores are great in that they can give an indication of whether we're doing relatively well or worse, with our sleep. But people need to know what to do when they see the score. And we're intent on making sure people get the right information about what to do once they see a score that's relatively good or relatively bad. Yes?
So, how I felt, how I slept, sometimes differ from
Oh, yeah.
what my wearable tells
Yeah.
me. Should there be a standard about how the devices should evaluate the sleep?
That's a
Yeah,
easy
so-
question for I think Joe to address.
Well, I think first thing that you're pointing out is that there's this disconnect between objective measure and a more subjective experience of sleep. I always say go with yourself. You are your expert more than anything that you're wearing or that's observing you. So definitely follow your own body. When it comes to it, it's just a long-standing issue that there's differences. They're measuring different things. Neither one being right or wrong, which I think is important, just different avenues or different angles to look at the same picture at the end of the day. In terms of standards, it's tough because the gold standard of sleep is polysomnography, which gets straight to brain waves, right? EEG, which often still is disconnected from what you feel and what you perceive in the morning. So even when you have a standard that reflects quite well what we're measuring in terms of at the brain level of sleep, it still might not reflect your true experience, which is why it's important to capture so many different angles and to try to get to some sort of harmonization among those different things. But it's a complicated issue that sleep science has been struggling with for decades.
I would add to that, though, that we are and have been working on and publishing standards for measurement, for objective measurement. I think there's some subjective, or is it just all objective?
Most of it's
Most of it objective. And I'd encourage you, either through our website, dnsf.org. There's only one National Sleep Foundation, and we are at thensf.org. You can find, or I think you can access the standards either through our website or through the CTA site. Yes?
So my question is a little bit more practical. The data, the digital health, all the tech is wonderful. And when people are measuring or they're going by, let's just say they become dependent on technology for their natural sleep pattern, it doesn't work. Or they feel like it doesn't work. They're not getting the hours in and so forth and so on. And then they develop anxiety around, okay, well this says I'm not doing this and I need to do this. The balance in that, how does that work? Now I know there's like Calm, there's some other apps, and some things you go on YouTube and listen to ocean waves, so forth and so on to help with that. But the balance when it comes to technology, the sleep pattern, and not developing anxiety or, oh my God, this is more practical questions, because the data is saying, I'm not getting enough, and I need to figure this out. How do you balance that?
Well, I think there's a two-part answer to that. We'll let Joe start.
First, I'll note that what you're describing is a relatively new phenomenon. A group of researchers coined this as orthosomnia, the idea that devices and trying to perfect your sleep and being hyper vigilant to your sleep might actually create some anxiety and result in the opposite of what you're intending, right? You can focus too much, increased anxiety. As you noted, your sleep could decrease. So it's a relatively new phenomenon. We never had to deal with something like that before because we didn't have these devices and people weren't trying to optimize and perfect it. The chasing perfection, I think, often results in such things. You can think of other disorders or conditions where it's influenced by trying to overly pursue perfection. In these cases, I think it would be very important for you to give back to basics, to be aware of what's actually occurring and maybe disconnect a little bit. Technology has great potential to help and to improve and to touch many people's lives when it's used appropriately, right? It's the appropriate use of technology that's important, and there's something about overextending that might create some of these harms that you mentioned.
And that's the second part of the answer. It's kind of a know thyself situation where we already know that anxiety is a very, very common disruptor of sleep. And we also know that people who live with anxiety oftentimes sleep more poorly than others. So it's really important. Joe mentioned appropriate. It's like so many things, or even with technology, that's about using it and knowing the appropriate folks for it. Sir?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm a computational data scientist, and when you're collecting data, you'd like to take it from a lot of different sources. Seems like technology's kind of hitting that point. Are you seeing pushback from the Apples and the Garmins and those that collect a lot of that data? It could be very valuable to anyone, but also with privacy, have some of those issues too. Some of it's in the formulation of how the data comes and how it's packaged to be able to assess, the right pathways and how to utilize that data.
Is that a trick question?
No. Well, I mean, I'm ex-DOJ, so go ahead.
Well, in so many contexts, the data are key. The data, the truth are in the data, but also so are opportunities and so, frankly, our revenues. So, not to cast any judgment, but data are currency. People want to own their data. Companies want to own their data. And so, whether or not companies that are historically in fiercely competitive space are willing to maybe even work with a third party to have some type of a platform to collect these data so that everyone can benefit from them. It's a great concept. I'm not sure we're there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you can see that's the pathway.
Yeah.
If you have the data, you can figure out what's needed.
But I think there's a lot of progress there.
Where the value would be, I'm a veteran too, so, in war zone, sleep is, you talk about anxiety.
Absolutely. If you're in theater, yeah.
Are we making a proper decision? It depends many times on what's the health of this person.
Yeah.
Mental
100%.
health.
100%.
It can change every 2 days or 3 days.
I think it still is an opportunity in this space. We expect there will be more collaboration as we're seeing across companies. That will start to happen likely with data. I don't know, we have a good view of how quickly that will start to happen.
Does HIPAA push back?
Does HIPAA push? Well, HIPAA is very, very particular about protecting privacy.
Right.
I'll tell you what we do see in some of our, again, nationally represented polls are concerns expressed by consumers about privacy. So over 50% of consumers are concerned about privacy issues when it comes to their sleep data.
Things will open up. We expect things should open up. We can look at other models in healthcare pharma as a model, where there's been a lot of collaborative research among what have historically been competitors, but they see that coming together and sharing information actually advances more things for patients. I think that we'll get there with tech. Ms. Mack.
And you mentioned the workplace as
Yeah.
one of the ones there. How is the workplace, how are employers going to be involved in this, or how is it that they can?
Well, employers are very invested in the well-being and wellness of.
I understand that.
Yeah. Well, there are wellness programs that they can fund. There are cultures that they can maintain within the organization related to sleep health and productivity. There's assistance they can provide. Employees, they can do screening, and we're not talking about sleep disorders per se, we're talking about general sleep health. There are a lot of ways we believe that employers can have a more active role just through benefits and wellness priorities to help their coworkers with sleep. Sir, did you have a question?